Everyone. The IOB ran in-person CBD and the revised Core Competency Framework Roadshow. These events took place in Dublin North, Dublin South, Athlone, Sligo and Cork during the month of September, October and November. It was an interactive session and we received great feedback from attendees. Some pharmacists asked the IOB if we have an online version so you can listen to it, and others unfortunately could not attend and would like to have access to the presentation online. So thank you for your feedback. During the show, we had an interactive session, but as this a recording session, I will be pausing to give you some time to think of an example or scenarios. My name is Rana. I am a pharmacist and I am a peer support pharmacist for the IOP. Kindly, Katrina was attending the event, and as you all know, Katrina is an executive director of the Irish Institute of Pharmacy, and her contribution and feedback was amazing during the roadshow. We will take a brief look at the role of core competency frameworks for some context. Then we will look at the changes to the core competency framework and its practical implication for CBD and for self-assessments. Then we will spend some time talking about how to self-assess effectively. And finally, we will also take a look at some of the IOB resources that are available to support CBD given the new changes. As we tried to make the event as engaging and relative as possible for the attendees, there was a group interaction to get the thought of the new CCF changes and experience of the competency frameworks. But as we all know, this is a recording, a presentation. So if you have any question or looking for further information, please email info@iop.ie. So how competency frameworks can be used? The main purpose of competency framework is to articulate the specific skills, behaviors, and attitudes that are needed for a given role. Once this clarity is achieved, a competency framework can be used for lots of different purposes. Let's now look at some examples of the uses of competency framework in pharmacy. It can be used to evaluate the development of a skill. Preceptors in a pill will be familiar with assessing competencies for undergraduates. It's also used to help identify area for learning and development. Pharmacists will be familiar with this in the e-portfolio. Competency can be used to form the basis of a review of a practice. Practice review is just one example of this. Workforce development. By articulating the required competencies for a role, competency frameworks provide a roadmap for workforce development. An example of that is the National Cancer Control Program have used the Pharmacist CCF as a basis for identifying the skills required for pharmacists working in cancer care. Recognition and credentialing. Anyone who has worked in the UK may be familiar with this, where you can apply for recognition or credentialing by demonstrating how you meet the requirements of the advanced credentials. Niamh McMahon is an Irish pharmacist who underwent the RPS credentialing for consultant pharmacists. So she would have undertaken the assessment against their competency framework for consultants. Competency frameworks haven't been used in Ireland for advanced credentialing in pharmacy. The core competency framework relates to the core role of pharmacy. An advanced framework would be required to articulate the requirement related to advanced practice. We're not there yet in Ireland, but hopefully that is a future possibility. So, who has experience with any of these frameworks? Skills evaluation, learning and development, performance evaluation, workforce development, recognition and credentialing. I'm just going to pause for a few seconds to give you time to think. I might be give you an examples. Let's say skills evaluation. So for skills and performance, it's often about checking that someone has met all the criteria before they can sign off. For learning and development, it is much more about reflecting on where you would like to focus your development. So we'll move on to the role of core competency frameworks. There are SI requirements on pharmacists to carry out self-assessment of learning needs against the CCF for pharmacists, and therefore the changes in the CCF are relevant to you, and you need to understand them. There has been talk about the advanced practice. Internationally, the trend is to advance credentialing. We are not there yet. We don't have advanced frameworks. But if we look at the international trends, that's where the profession is going. The skills that you need for self assessment are the same, irrespective of the framework. We will talk about these later, but they are generally about looking at the objective evidence, seeking feedback, and reflecting on performance and practice. Next agenda item, it changes to the 2013 CCF. What has changed? The original core competency framework was published in 2013. This was reviewed and the revised core competency framework was published in July 2023. So the original 2013 core competency framework looked like this. It has 6 domains. Each domain had related competencies, and each competency had a list of prescribed behaviors that were expected to be relevant. 10 years on, we are in a different place. Pharmacists are now used to the CBD system, are familiar with the CCF, and are familiar with seeing the domains and competencies in the e-portfolio system. Graduates are now also familiar with the CCF through their appel placements and university degrees. So the revised CCF builds on the experience in the professional. Let's go through the differences as we move from the original CCF, which is 2013, to the new one. So, what this means for us as a pharmacist? Let's have a look at these points in more details. The first practical implication is that from this point forward, the revised core competency framework is to be used as the basis for self assessment for CBD. If you recall from earlier that there is a requirement that every pharmacist shall, on a regular basis, carry out a self assessment of his or her learning needs, having regard to the core competency framework for pharmacists, with a view to identifying learning activities appropriate to the needs of his or her professional practice. This is now self-assessment against the revised core competency framework instead of the older core competency framework 2013. The next practical implication is that this self-assessment will now be against indicative behaviors rather than prescribed behaviors, allowing a greater flexibility and adaptation of the CCF to your own practice area. The next practical implication is that this self-assessment will now be against indicative behavior rather than prescribed behaviors, allowing a greater flexibility and adaptation of the CCF to your own practice area. The 2013 CCF featured required behaviors. The revised CCF instead features indicative behaviors. Behaviors are now indicative, reflecting a move away from required behaviors, a tick box exercise, if you remember. And the PSI have provided indicative behaviors for guidance, but the pharmacist is best placed to identify the knowledge, skills, and behaviors that demonstrate that competence in their practice. The IOB support the move away from list of behaviors that have to be met and a greater agency on the part of the practitioner. Next slide will be an interactive session, or it was an interactive session where we looked at one of the competency and their indicative behaviors. As I explained, it is a recording webinar today, so I will be pausing and hopefully that will give you a time to think how you can relate to that domain or competency. So, leadership competency example. So, what I'm looking from here, from this slide, is for examples of what behaviors demonstrate competency in leadership. For example, have any contribution to consultation documents, professional leadership, mental health ambassadors, mentoring, leadership of local community group. I am going to pause for a few minutes, give you some time to read, and maybe have some examples for that competency. moving from the 2013 CCF to the revised core competency framework. The next practical implication is that the IOB CSAT is no longer available. When you log into your IOB profile, if you remember, you have seen the CSAT icon showing here in the center. And when you click in that icon, it brings you to the tool itself. There is a short video. I'm just gonna run it. The CSAT was developed to enable pharmacists to assess against the 2013 Core Competency Framework. Pharmacists were taken through each domain, competency, and a prescribed behavior, as you can see from the video, and were asked to evaluate their competence level and learning needs. Ticking box. I'm just gonna let the video play. So that was the core competence, the CSAT, if you remember. There were two camps when it came to CSAT: those who loved it and those who loathed it. The CSAT did serve an important purpose in helping increase awareness of the core competency framework and its role in CBD. It provided a structure to assess self-assessment, and it provided suggested competency for development. However, many pharmacists found it long and very long to complete a CSAT. Many felt it was very much a tick box exercise and may not have agreed with the suggested competencies for development. It restricted self-assessment to the prescribed behaviors. Also, self-assessment without any other input is usually flawed. Therefore, taking all of this into account and considering that the CSAT was based on 2013 Core Competency Framework and not the revised Core Competency Framework, this decision was made to retire the CSAT. The e-portfolio cycle looked slightly different. The revised CCF domains and competencies are now incorporated into the self-appraisal sections of the cycle. This was done to help make it easier to you to self-assess against the core competency framework, domains, and competencies. We will now have a look at cycles so you can see what I mean by this. This is a small video. I am going to run it. So you create a new cycle, or you go to your e-portfolio and you're creating a new cycle. You write the name of the cycle and the stage, the start of the stage. So that's where you find the link I was mentioning. It's in the self appraisal. And this is exactly the link, which is highlighted in green. And if you click on that link, you will be going to the PSI and you will be seeing the core competency framework. You also find the core competency framework domain toward the end of that stage or of that section. So as you can see from the video, that the core competency framework domains and competencies are now listed in the self-appraisal sections of the cycle. Just to recap of how we got here, there is a requirement on all pharmacists to self-assess against the core competency framework for pharmacists. The CSAT tools is no longer available for this self-assessment. Assessment or evaluation of oneself or one's action, attitude, or performance. Self-assessment. Like when we self-assess, we identify strength, identify areas for development, maintain professional competence, support professional career development, ensure that CBD activities can be targeted at skills that are relevant and meaningful for you and your practice and patients. I would like to give you an example, personal example, about self-assessment. So as you know, when we self-assessed, we identify our strength. One of my strengths is I am a people person. I know I am doing an online presentation and I feel like I am talking to myself, but in general, I am a people person. I work with my team very well, and my team work with me very well. Um, we they feel that like, and I feel that we are a family, and we treat each of other with respect. They are very happy. They come to me like asking for support or help or what you call it, personal advice. We're really, really, I have really, really a very good relationship with my team. And I always think this is my strength. And when I assess myself for myself, I always ignore that point because I always like, oh, like this area I don't need even to revisit. Maybe try to improve more about myself, but this is one of my strength, my strongest point. Until I had a review with one of my team, and I asked her, "Can you please give me feedback? Anything I can work on?" And I would really appreciate that. And surprisingly, or that came to me as a shock when she said, Rana, we love working with you. We're enjoying working with you. But when you're focusing, we kind like we try even to avoid talking to you. You look tense, you look like focusing in a way that we don't want to come near you. And oh my god, that was shocked when I heard that. It is a behavior that I do without me realizing. I actually like, yes, I am focusing. And I usually like when I'm focused, I try to finish or think or make sure that everything is perfect. And I never thought that if one of my colleague was coming to me while I'm focusing, that I have a face. Like it was like a surprise. Of course, I start working on that, but I would never ever knew about this if I did not ask the question. This is my strength point, and I did not realize that I have to work on that point. So it's good that we self assess, it's good that we identify our strength, but we can't see our own blind spots. So now we will have a look at ways that we can improve our skills of self assessment. Self assessed. The first aspect to consider to help improve self assessment is to look at objective evidence. So, what is objective evidence and how does it link to my CBD? Objective evidence is a collection of data from a range of sources that has been critically analyzed and presented in such a way as to make a case or support an argument. Examples: objective evidence demonstrating a learning need or the effect of a learning activity on a practice, a certificate of achievement from an accredited course, a completed project or work delivered, evidence by key performance indicators, KPIs. Another important component to improve self assessment is the use of reflective practice. What is reflective practice and how does it link to my CBD? Valuable tool in CBD, enabling professionals to learn from their experience, adapt to changing circumstances, and continually improve their performance. The benefits of reflective practice: it will enhance self awareness, improve learning by reflecting on past experience outcome, foster cultures of continuous improvement, and better decision making. Reflection is simply thinking back over things that have happened and identifying what you can do better next time. Let's say, for example, if you're playing golf or tennis, a bad golf or tennis shot, we hit bad ball and think, gosh, what did I do there? We walk ourselves back over the shot in our heads and look to find where we went wrong. This is the essence of reflection and reflective practice. If we look at enhance self-awareness, reflective practice encourages individual to analyze their experience, action, and decision, leading to a deeper understanding of their strength, weakness, and area for improvement. Self awareness can lead to more effective self assessment and self directed learning. What does that mean? That means taking the time to think back over things help us become more aware of things we do. Let's look at improved learning. By reflecting on past experience and outcomes, professionals can identify what worked well and what did not. This knowledge helps them make more informed decisions in the future and enhance their learning process, make it more meaningful and impactful. Let's think of it in a different way. Taking the time to think back over things help us see where our gaps are. Let's look at continuous improvement. Regularly engaging in reflective practice foster a culture of continuous improvement. Professionals can identify area for growth and development and take intentional steps to enhance their skills and knowledge. Again, taking the time to think back over things help us make a habit of it. The last point, which is better decision making. Reflective practice helps professionals identify patterns of behavior and decision making. By analyzing these patterns, they can make more informed and effective choices in their professional roles. Again, taking the time to think back over things help us find our heal. Example, looking at the error log and thinking about why it happens. What are the circumstances that are common to it? The IOB run a few webinar for reflective practice, and you can find more information about it through the IOB website. The third aspect we are going to consider is the use of feedback. As highlighted previously, one of the limitations of self assessment is that we can't see our own blind spots. One way to help overcome this is through seeking feedback. Feedback can be thought from multiple purposes as a way of improving our self-assessment and helping to identify our CBD needs. So example of feedback, for example, supervisor feedback from your direct manager, peer feedback from close colleagues on the same level as you, upward feedback from people who report to you, customers feedback from customers you directly serve. Also, it is important to remember that it is just one perspective. Now, again, there are a few events and few webinars for the IOB about feedback. Um, so please log into the IOB and have a look what webinar, what day that suits you, and attend one of these webinars. It is really very, very good. Now, this is self-assessment, including asking for feedback. This feedback gave evidence of performance. Colleague provided examples of where she demonstrated leadership. I am going to give you a few minutes to have a look on that example. So this example about the leadership and the pharmacist, that she is demonstrating a leadership in the pharmacy, taking responsibility, managing staff, supporting a student. But the feedback is that the other colleague was mentioned is about external stakeholders. This is another example. And this is a sample cycle which shows self-assessment against the core competency framework using reflective practice, and also considers the role of feedback. It is an example of self-assessment against the core competency framework, domain 1, personal, and the competency is 1.1, demonstrates leadership, in particular indicative behavior. 1.1.4, I am open to and encourage two-way feedback with others. I reflect on and modify my behavior and practice in response to feedback and experience. I'm going to give you a few minutes to read it. But again, if you have a look, we mentioned the slight changes in the cycle due to the new or the revised core competency, that in the self-appraisal, you will see the completing self-assessment against the core competency framework. And it is also a hyperlink. So if you click on it, it will open the revised core competency framework. So I'll give you a few minutes to have a look. The next in the agenda, I would like to highlight some IIOB resources to support CBD. So IOB resources to support CBD, there is a wide range of courses and events from accrediting training program to IOB information events such as introduction to the IOB, introduction to e-portfolio review, and even the roadshow that we have done in the past few months. Now, to access the IOB's list of courses and events from the IOB home page, simply click on the courses and events link and then the all courses and event link. You can refine your search by clicking on the course and events area listed in each of the tabs shown. Copies of the IOB newsletter can all be found on the website at the following link, which is the iob.ie/IOB-newsletter. And also you can access the IOB newsletter archive from the IOB homepage. Click on the Keep in Touch link and then the IOB newsletter link. All issues will contain articles of relevance to the pharmacist, CBD, example, samples of CBD cycle submitted by different pharmacists. Webinars are available on the IOB website at the following link, which is iob.ie/all-webinars. On this page, you can access all recorded versions of the live webinars listed in individual webinar pages includes the full recording, information on the speakers, and summary of the contents. So pharmacist engagement with the IOP, your stats for CBD cycle created, e-portfolio review participation, practice review participation, webinar participation, course certificate issues, and event attend. I really like to play a video what you as a pharmacist have done. It is about statistics on number or cycles created, CSATs created, vaccinations given, course certificates issued, review undertaken, e-portfolio and practice, webinars registered and attendees. The video will take a few minutes, but I really would like to play that video. This is amazing. The first time I saw, and every time I see the video, it is amazing. The pharmacist engagement with the IOP and the contribution from the pharmacist. It just always like I like that video. So thank you very much. I really appreciate all the support, all the engagement. Um, so these are some stats and obvious the engagement with the IOB, but there is also opportunities to get more deeply involved in many of those same areas, such as those listed: practice review, e-portfolio review, peer support, and other. Um, just watch the space. Other opportunities will become available as the IOB advances. It's your IOB, so why you're not register your interest via various expression of interest? Notification always come from the IOB, or even simply by email info@iob.ie to let the IOB know that you would like to get involved or know more. I myself, I've been involved with the IOB, I think, since 2016, and I've been involved in as a peer support pharmacist. I also been involved in delivering webinar, roadshow, and I just enjoy it. So you're more than welcome to show your interest and send the IOB an email, and let them know that you would like to be involved. Now, unfortunately, as I said, because this is a recording one, um, you might be have a question, but unfortunately, like, of course, I don't know what question you have, so I'm not able to answer the question. But again, you can, if you have any question, you can email info@IIOB, and they will come back to you as soon as possible. And thank you very much. Thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you very much for requesting the roadshow to be recording. And I hope that you find it valuable and answered some of your question. And before I let you go, just remember there are many webinars for reflective, for self-assessment in the IOB. All what you need is to log into your IOB, look at the events and courses, and pick and choose the event that you need, or you find it useful for you and you need further information about it. Again, thank you very much, and I hope you have a nice day.